I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. Today we are going to talk about 7 things that I learned to become a better artist. If you watched Wednesday's video, you saw this painting, which was a remake of one that I had painted 19 years ago. You can see I've improved quite a bit over the last nearly 20 years. The first thing that I learned, and this is something that I've heard artists, especially young artists, say so many times, well, this is just my style. And they end up using that, this is just my style, myself included. I was there for a while. You use this excuse of this is just my style to not improve, and it hinders and keeps you from getting better. I've heard artists say they don't want to go to school or take lessons, and I'm not saying you have to go to art school, but I mean don't want to take lessons, don't want to learn from somebody else because they don't want that person to form their style, to change what their style is. And usually when I hear this from people, and where I was at the same time when I used to believe this myself, the artwork's just not very strong yet. It could be. You can see that a lot of these people have talent. Don't let your stubbornness and pride keep you from getting better. I realize that's probably not the case with most of you guys because you are watching painting videos to improve, but it is something that I hear a lot where people are so worried about losing their style. Style is something that you're going to develop over time. It's going to evolve as you evolve as an artist, and that's a really good thing. You want to know how to do as much as possible. The more you know how to do, whether it be different techniques or how to draw something in a different way, it's all going to add up into you having more control over your finished piece. If you don't know how to blend a certain way and you want to paint something that requires wet into wet blending, but you didn't want to take the time to learn it because you were afraid it was going to affect your style, you're limiting yourself. The more you're willing to learn, the better your artwork's going to get. Which goes into number 2, wet into wet blending. For acrylic painting especially, this made all the difference in the world in my work. And don't worry, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to be doing a tutorial on that this Wednesday, so make sure you come back for that. But learning how to get my acrylic paints to blend softly from one color to another, that made a huge, huge deal in what I was able to do in my paintings. Number 3, keeping your work clean. That was a big one for me because I would have pencil lines all over the place. I mean, it was just, my work was a mess. And when I finally got to where I understood if you tape a piece of tracing paper to whatever you have painted so far, draw out your subjects like I did on this one with the whales, draw them out on the tracing paper and then use transfer paper to get it onto your canvas. It's going to keep your canvas very clean. You're not going to have eraser marks all over or pencil sketches. It just makes everything look a lot nicer in the end. It makes it look more professional, much more finished, and it gives you a lot more control. The 4th thing I learned, slow down. There is no magical paintbrush, magical sponge, magical technique that is going to make everything go really easy. A lot of times when you get into the detail work, like for me, when I painted this first one, I thought that I just needed to know how to use the brush right, how to have a special sponge, and you would do the coral really quickly. I held on to that belief for years, and it really made a difference in my work because my coral didn't look realistic. It didn't have any depth. It was very flat. I was trying different sponges, different brushes, but I was trying to get it done in 15 minutes. You know what? I end up spending now, I could spend an hour on a single piece of coral or an hour on a fish, and it really makes a difference. Slow down. Stop trying to look for the shortcuts because sometimes they're not there. Now, yeah, with acrylic, you have to paint quickly when you're getting your background to blend, but once your background is in there and you're painting in the foreground and all of the detail, that's where you really want to slow down. Spend a lot of time looking at your reference photos. Pay attention to those details. Don't try to rush it. And don't think because another artist, I do paint really fast. Part of that is just experience and part is just, maybe it's because I talk fast and I naturally just move fast. I don't know. It could be part hummingbird. But don't think because another artist got something done in 15 hours that that's how long it should take you to do. It may take you 80 hours, but who cares if the end result is good? Number 5, contrast and color. You can see from my original one to the new one, the only real contrast I had was in the wrong spots on that painting. I was leaving my whites really white on the whales, but the water didn't fade nicely. It faded from 2 colors, but they're kind of the same hue. I need to fade from really light to really dark in this case, which I've done on the new version. But getting those lights much lighter and your darks a little bit darker, that's going to look a lot better than keeping everything kind of mid-range. The other thing is I didn't have shadows on my first one. It was just white and black, and you don't really want to do that. Save your whites for final details and highlights so that those areas really pop. But I mean, you can use white as far as mixing it with other paint, but as far as keeping things flat, straight white, use that pretty sparingly. But don't be afraid to get the contrast. It's so much safer to have everything kind of mid-range. Don't go too dark, don't go too light. Get those lights, get those darks in there, because that's going to make a big difference in your finished paintings and drawings. Number 6, don't position all of your subjects flat, side view. One of the things that I was doing when I first started painting, like because whales were what I was focused on, everything was just the side view, side angle, perfectly flat. That doesn't look natural. And the same thing with fish. Fish were all perfectly flat. You want to change some of the angles. Have some to where they're facing you and turning different directions. That will really make a difference. And it's not just if you're doing marine life. It could be anything. If you're painting butterflies or birds, don't have them all perfectly positioned sideways. Get different angles in there. My last tip, number 7, don't get so frustrated that you don't feel your skill level is where you want it to be that you give up. When you feel that frustration where you're like, man, my work is never going to be that good as this other person. I want my work to be better, but it's just not there. I'm just going to give up painting. I'm not good. Don't give up. Move forward. That frustration usually precedes a really big explosion in your skill level, because then you want to focus on, why is my work not as good as this other person? What is different about their work versus my work? Or what's different about my reference photo versus my drawing? What's different? What can I change? What do I need to adjust? A lot of the time, it's just that you need to spend more time working on whether it be the drawing or the shading. So often, it's just more time is needed. Quick little story. My stories are never quick, but I'm gonna try. Quick little story. Back years ago when I first started doing pet portraits, I was just doing them very loose. They were not detailed. Here's a sample. I was not putting a lot of time, a lot of work. They were drawn fairly accurate. They were shaded. I was like, yeah, good. I'm calling it done. I spent 45 minutes on it. I'm done. And I started looking at other pet portrait artists, and I was like, oh my gosh, it looks like a photograph. It's amazing. Why doesn't mine look like that? I want my work to look like theirs. And I got really frustrated with the fact that my skill level I just felt like I'm not as good as them. I'm going to give up. I'm not going to do it anymore. And what I did instead is I spent several days or a week, I forget how long it was, but I spent some time really looking at some of these artists who were better than me and figuring out what they were doing. What about their portrait was better than mine? What exactly was the difference between theirs and mine? And so the very next one that I did, where I normally would have spent 45 minutes, I spent about 8 hours on it. And now I may even spend more than that. But I mean, look at the difference between right before I came to that place of frustration to spending a few days or a week or whatever it was, doing the research, figuring out what was different, and then here's my next one. Sometimes it's not that you don't have the skill, it's that you need to change the way you're looking at things, your attitude about it, your outlook on things. Stop, which also goes back to stop rushing things, slow down. But overall, me getting so frustrated and starting to think, man, I'm just not a good enough artist to be doing this, I just want to give up, pushing through that made the difference. Hitting that low point though in how I felt about my work was what it took for me to push past that and do better. I hope these tips help you guys in giving you some ideas on what I did over the last 20 years to improve my own work. What tips do you guys have for other artists to improve their work? Leave your ideas in the comments below. I'd love to read those. If you're new here, I have video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, and vlogs most weekends. Every weekend. Usually every weekend. So make sure you subscribe and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, all those social media sites. Links are below in the video description. You can keep up with news, my newest works, and see real-time clips of whatever it is that I'm currently working on. I'll see you Tuesday.